All right, I'm about to do an interview.
Yes.
They like you, Mike. They like
you more.
I don't think so.
Yeah, great to see you.
So we get to talk to a lot of really interesting people on this stage, but nobody more important than you. Thank you for all your work, your courage. I've watched some of your videos in the early morning just saying, what the hell they've been doing to us? They've hit us every which way but loose, a bunch of dirty tricks. Today, things are different.
Well, today we're hitting back.
Yeah, we're hitting back.
And, we were talking backstage. The wind has never been more at our sails. In 1 month, more has been done to reform these rogue agencies than has been done in a century of variously virtuous things, but malfeasance that was never really accounted for or redressed. And in my wildest dreams, I could not have imagined a first 30 days bigger, bolder, and more historic than the time we're living in now.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, I want to tell the ushers, these red seats, if anybody wants to move forward and sit in them, you're welcome to. You have my permission. I only have a few prerogatives, when paying the bills, and that's one of them. I get to fill seats. But Mike, so this USAID Doge thing, I was cynical. I didn't know kind of how this would work. I was thinking that the swamp would fight back. This has sent a lightning bolt around the globe like nothing I ever could have anticipated. Am I wrong?
No, you're totally right. It's, this is the joke I always tell on this, is that it's what they tell you to do your first day in prison, is you walk up to the biggest, baddest, guy on your cell block and you punch him straight in the nose, and that sends the message, even if, they're going to attack you back, that, you're not someone to mess with. And this is what happened with USAID. And I think they never saw it coming. This is a $44 billion annual slush fund that has been fully weaponized against the American people. We have these democracy promotion programs that define our own elected government as a threat to democracy. At some point, we had two choices. Either you keep USAID or you create a new USAID to stop the actions that the previous one was doing. And so now, under the gun of their funding being cut and the entire ecosystem being cut, they're finally being brought to the negotiating table. And frankly, many of them are groveling on their knees.
And that left-wing media is talking about how psychologically difficult it is for these federal employees because they have to do things like go to work. They might have to tell their boss what they're doing. They might not be able to engage in coups and stuff in other countries with this funding. A tiny little violin. Now let me give you the other side. For those of us who've been the victims of psychological warfare, as Dr. Malone would say in his great new book, this PSYOP of misinformation, destruction, I think a lot of us are psychologically damaged. I'm not saying that because we're wimpy, or we're psychologically damaged by all this work that the government colluding with these media companies have done. Is that overdramatic?
I actually think that's right, but the other side of that is what they call, when they run these psychological operations, they call them psychological resilience, which is this idea that you need to build up an inoculation against psychologically. And I actually think that's where we are right now. There are a lot of harsh realities that are dawning on the American people with the veil of covert operations and quasi-overt, USAID, covert activity cloaked under NGO work. But the fact is I think it's been an incredibly responsible response from the American people. I think that, most, in ancient civilizations were they to hear about this, it would be a lot more drastic action than the simple defunding. But the fact is...
What, a beheading? What are you trying to say?
Pro-democracy wellspring. We would liberate this country. But the fact is this is all being done in accordance with rule of law. It's all being done with incredibly immaculate technical implementation from Elon Musk and Doge. It's being done with vision and foresight from the White House. I've been incredibly impressed. J.D. Vance, the shot heard across Europe and frankly around the world. We've really assembled an all-star team, and there are almost no weak links in the chain. And I think the fact that we are all so united in this moment, the fact that the coalition is so broad, has made it really hard for opposition to actually find a surface area of attack. And I think with the, they weren't wrong to call it shock and awe with all the dramatic action that's happening right now. So they're now being sequestered, losing the court of public opinion, losing their censorship capabilities.
Losing some donors.
Losing donors and losing a weaponized Justice Department that was always their fail-safe in case anyone got too brave. All they're left with now are New York judges.
So we ask ourselves this all the time, which was like, you have a conference, which is important to have a good conference. And by the way, you honor us with your presence. Thanks for being here. Do you love this guy or what? He's amazing. Yep. I was kind of pinching myself yesterday as I saw the president of Argentina walk down that thing with that big, super badass chainsaw, chromed out. By the way, I got a tour of the chainsaw. It had a replica of the planet Mars on the throttle. Pretty cool. And so Malay's walking down. Elon Musk is there in his iconic, crazy-looking glasses. And then I saw the Twitter, the X action, and everything else online. What kind of psychological impact does something like that have on the bad guys?
Well, I think the symbolism of the chainsaw does not leave much room for nuance and subtlety. But it's preceded by the President of the United States with a giant samurai sword. So, I think that we are in a period of radical reform. We are totally restructuring rogue institutions that have gotten so corrupted, and they now face the choice of reform or termination. And I think as more and more of these see what happened to USAID, what may be happening to other agencies as soon as this week, perhaps, the ones that remain will understand that if they want to continue to exist as American institutions who have earned our trust, they have to reform. And people, we live life cycles where, we're all mortal. We live, we die. Institutions can pretend that they live until infinity. There's no moment that an institution like USAID peacefully sunsets. And so they can get away with rogue activity until the moment they're confronted by a population who will hold them accountable, by a brave executive branch who will do the same. And so it's taken this much, and these abuses have been chronicled by scholars and academics and media institutions for a century now. And it took until this moment, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Matt Schlapp and consensus building organizations and institutions and events like this that have held the line and have given us a forum to all come together and show the world we are completely united and nothing is going to stop us now.
So I'm trying to read between the lines here. Are you saying that the combination of all these amazing people, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, all these amazing people that are stepping up and being brave, I'd like to add Kash Patel to that list, Pam Bondi. Are you saying that if we get the first couple of steps right, that the bad guys will realize we're not going to stop and they'll actually start changing their behavior rather quickly? Or is that kind of like Lucy with the football, and they're going to kind of hide, wait, and go right back to being bad, and we got to just kind of mow through the whole agency after agency and move on from there?
To be clear, this struggle is not going to end in our lifetimes. No matter how many successes we get in 4 years, the institutional interests are too deeply entrenched. The money on the line is too great for many of these institutions and donors to feel like they would lose if they had to actually do what the American people voted for. But the fact is they can be, many of them can, the worst excesses can be excised, and the remainder can be brought to the negotiating table. But at this point, one of the main concerns is the international picture. The MAGA movement started as a nationalist movement, but the international picture from USAID and the rogue activities of the former State Department and intelligence community, they're one thing, but here at this conference, we've seen heads of state and people from almost all populated continents coming to this conference to say that we are together, and the opposition is going to be doing the same on the other side. The censors in exile will be running to Europe, and the in-power governments with the UK Labour Party and in France, they will be forming a coalition to try to use the weaponized powers of foreign governments that they have lost over our Justice Department and our regulatory bodies here, which is why it is so important that this unity movement is international and takes that international lens, because one of my concerns is that while they've lost their grip over the Justice Department and potentially may lose that over the NGOs, the European Union, governments in Brazil, governments in Central Asia and Central and Eastern Europe will all try to band together. You ever see that meme of a minnow and a shark, and then the minnows all get together and they look bigger than the shark? And that's where we are right now. And the thing to watch for is what happens when the sharks all join together to form this super shark. And I think that's what we're seeing now with the forces against places like Slovakia and Hungary and the forces trying to destabilize their governments, as well as what's happening in the UK with people being, when they're rising to power, they get arrested for clicking the like button on a tweet. But we have to bring the whole world up with us.
Yeah, that's right. And so I guess that would be my final question, which is, I don't know if we should all feel so happy and joyful. They said they had joy. By the way, I've never met a joyful communist ever, except for the guy who's in charge. They usually have at least some degree of pleasure. I don't know if it's joy.
I would say sometime between 10 p.m. and midnight when they start drinking. That's when you start seeing.
No, that's called numbing. That's not really joy. But so I guess the question I'd have for you is, the more you read, the more you can get awfully depressed. The more you know, the more you realize this has been a giant struggle that you said for 100 years could go on 100 years. Yep. For a while here, I thought I didn't know if we'd have 100 years left, because I thought they had folded up their pup tents. You talk about all these people here from overseas. You can't walk down these hallways without hearing all these accents, right? People from all these countries, people who felt so desperate in their own countries. And then Trump wins, which is your guys' win, too, because you did a lot of the work. My perception is a lot of powerful people around the world are permanently turning away from a leftward drift in embracing this idea that you can be for freedom and be politically successful. Right. And there's a great political benefit to exposing all of this corruption, all of this propaganda, all of this lying. Is that too optimistic, or do you think it's where we are?
I think that's exactly where things are heading. I've heard the same thing, and I think everyone is inspired. Just as you said, I think we really were on the brink of losing it all, and maybe forever. And a lot of countries under the thumb of authoritarian rule, or that are being rolled up by their own versions of their Justice Department, or tarnished by co-opted press, or censored into oblivion, they feel as hopeless as the American people felt 6 months ago, 4 months ago. And, it's just like the symbol of the chainsaw and the samurai sword. There's something very powerful to the difference between prison and president the difference between this and this being life or death, that
The millimeter miracle.
the millimeter miracle. It's a literal shot across the bow.
So we're hearing optimism from you. I like it.
If I may defend myself.
I wanted to give you one more shot to really clarify things.
Vigilance is eternal on this. Take a vacation if you feel you need to. Drink your champagne. If you're an Eagles fan, do a little touchdown dance. But then get right back to work.
Get right back to work. Are we going to do that? Are we going to get right back to work? Thank you, Mike. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks, Mike.